Hello everyone, and we are back for another reading here. Doing chapter 9, so let me get right to it here. Just gonna check the sound. Sounds a bit scratchy, of course. Okay, well, I guess we'll get into it then. Before we do, let us take a look at Yogananda.org and the various things here that you guys can check out, the meditations and all kinds of different stuff. Of course, if you wanted to get the book yourself, here you are. God Talks with Arjuna, $29.50 for the paperback, and their YouTube channel. So, there we go. And let's see here. I don't know what that sound is. I'm definitely going to get a new mic tomorrow. All right, well, anyways, continuing. Chapter 9, The Royal Knowledge, the Royal Mystery. Dismiss that. And the subsection here is direct perception of God through methods of yoga, quote, easy to perform, unquote. Verses 1 through 3. The Blessed Lord said, 1. To thee, the uncarping one, I shall now reveal the sublime mystery, the immanent transcendent nature of spirit. Possessing intuitive realization of this wisdom, thou shalt escape from evil. And quote number 2, this intuitive realization is the king of sciences, the royal secret, the peerless purifier, and the essence of Dharma, man's righteous duty. It is the direct perception of truth, the imperishable enlightenment attained through ways of yoga, very easy to perform. And number 3, quote, men without faith in this Dharma, without devotion to the practices that bestow realization, attain me not. O scorcher of foes, Arjuna, again and again they tread the death-darkened paths of samsara, the rounds of rebirth. And let's just double check it on that. Okay, sounds decent. Lord Krishna here proclaims self-realization, true wisdom as the highest branch of all human knowledge, the king of all sciences, the very essence of Dharma, quote-unquote religion, for it alone permanently uproots the cause of man's threefold suffering and reveals to him his true nature of bliss. Self-realization is yoga or quote-unquote oneness with truth, the direct perception or experience of truth by the all-knowing intuitive faculty of the soul. This intuitive realization is the basis of all valid religious experience, the very essence of Dharma, religion or righteousness, as here stated in the Gita. The devotee who, through ways of yoga, becomes established in self-realization possesses the all-knowing intuitive wisdom of direct perception that penetrates to the core of the mystery of how the Lord is at once both immanent and transcendent. Realizing his own oneness with God, the yogi knows that he himself is a microcosm of immanence and transcendence. He remains working in the world without losing awareness of his sublime soul, nature, and thus escapes the quote-unquote evil of delusive entanglements. Many philosophers, particularly in the West, take the defeatist attitude that God is unknowable. The opposite view is expounded in the Gita, and nowhere more clearly than in these verses. The highest truth is knowable by direct experience. Our present atomic age was inaugurated by scientists who had faith in the possibility of a vast expanse of human knowledge. By courageous visions and laborious experiment, they accomplished a task that men of previous centuries considered vain, chimerical, the splitting of an atom and the release of its hidden energies. Men of goodwill who carry on that work will be divinely guided to use the new knowledge for constructive purposes in the betterment of human life. The science of yoga was similarly developed by men of high aspiration. They hungered for the eternal truth and perfected the science of inwardly applied techniques that succeeded in bridging the otherwise impassable gulf between man and his maker. The indestructible unique is indeed not to be won lightly, but one it has been by many royal sages, and one it will be whenever there arises a devotee of sufficient yearning and determination. But, quote-unquote, the way has to be known. The secret path is yoga, quote-unquote, easy to practice, and conferring, quote, imperishable enlightenment, unquote. This next bigger section is called How the Lord Pervades All Creation, Yet Remains Transcendent, verses 4 through 6. Verse 4, I, quote, I, the unmanifested, pervade the whole universe. All creatures abide in me, but I do not abide in them. Number 5, behold my divine mystery, in which all beings are apparently not in me, nor does myself dwell in them, yet I alone am their creator and preserver. And number 6, understand it thus. Just as air moves freely in the infinitudes of space, akasha, and has its being in space, yet air is different from space, just so do all creatures have their being in me, but they are not I. Unquote. These words embody a portion of the highest wisdom, the, quote, sublime mystery, unquote, Krishna promised to reveal to Arjuna in chapter 9, verse 1. The thought, quote, creation, although permeated with God, yet does not comprise him nor reveal his essence, unquote, is liberating to the true devotee who does not cling to any state of phenomenal being but finds his own reality only in the unnameable, or yes, okay, I'm sorry. Let me go back and redo the sentence. Maybe not. The thought, creation, although permeated with God, yet does not comprise him nor reveal his essence, is liberating to the true devotee who does not cling to any state of phenomenal being but finds his own reality only in the unnameable, originless. All this cosmic dream and its creatures are produced by the pure, undistorted beam of God's consciousness. But its formless, infinite consciousness is ever transcendent, not limited to or by the finite dream of manifestations. Man, looking at the sky and the mountains and the ocean, does not detect in them the divine presence. The subtle beam of the Creator is imperceptible to the human gaze, because he is everywhere. It is as if he were nowhere. Although all creatures are formed of God texture, he is not contained nor exhausted by them. This interpretation explains the seeming contradiction in these verses that although the Lord pervades the world, yet he does not dwell in it. By God's mysterious power, Yogam Ashvaram, or divine yoga, his vibrationless, unmanifested cosmic consciousness underlines all vibratory beings, who nevertheless cannot be observed to exist in him, nor do they affect him. Even though a beam of light conveys and sustains motion picture scenes, with all their varieties and contrasts, the beam itself undergoes no transformations. Similarly, the motion pictures of creation do not disturb the Lord's originating beam. As the wind, wandering in all directions over the finite, infinite sky, is yet unable to affect the sky, so the colossal panorama of creation uninfluentially abides in God's eternal consciousness. As the changing images of a dream do not alter the essential nature of the dreamer's consciousness, so the evanescent scenes of the cosmic dream, with its hordes of tumultuous emotional beings that work and play within it, do not involve the divine unchangeable dreamer. Pardon me as I drink. Such is the paradox of creation, that God exists as the soul of all men, creating and supporting them, yet does not himself become entangled with them. And human beings, although saturated with God, are overcome by the cosmic delusion and made subject to birth and death, a mystery indeed. In the end, all speculations about the ultimate secrets of God and creation are profitless indeed. The stark fact is always with us. Man is here and now, undergoing the painful tests of human incarnation. Just as prisoners plot ceaselessly to regain their freedom, so the wise among men endeavor to escape the confinement of mortality. In his own good time, from his own ineffable lips, the Lord will reveal to his devotee all mysteries of heaven and earth. Verses 7 and 8. Quote, 7. At the end of a cycle, Kalpa, a son of Kunti, Arjuna, all beings, O son of Kunti, all beings return to the unmanifested state of my cosmic nature, Prakriti. At the end of the next cycle, again, I cast them forth. Verse 8. Quote, by revivifying Prakriti, mine own emanation, again and again I produce his host of creatures, all subject to the finite laws of nature. Unquote. The commentary elucidates, if the motion picture film on an unwinding reel is suddenly destroyed, the images on the screen at once disappear. Similarly, when God's illumined film of nature or Prakriti is dissolved at the end of a kalpa, all cosmic dream pictures of creation vanish. Again, at the start of another kalpa, the Lord awakens Mother Nature and causes her to resume the objective display, that of materialized beings, acting their parts on the quote screen of time and space. These cycles of evolution and involution are eternal. Quote, the show must go on, unquote, though one by one the actors become liberated and are replaced by a new cast, a portion of God's consciousness will always be engaged in the exhibition of phenomenal worlds, the stage whereon a multitude of his children must perform their roles until, through true self-realization, they earn an honorable dismissal. In the time span of infinity, beginning and end provide only an inscrutable concept that turns in on itself to come out again where it went in. Verse 9, quote, but these activities entrammel me not, a winner of wealth, Arjuna, for I remain above them, aloof and unattached, unquote. Unquote. The commentary continues, just as a person whose business it is to operate a Ferris wheel in an amusement park feels no identity with the personal emotional involvement of the riders, even so the master of this rotating Ferris wheel of creation, which is alternately started and stopped by his will, remains an onlooker, an impartial witness. So long as men enjoy riding the wheel of cosmic entertainment, so long must they be bound to it, helplessly experiencing the scenes of birth and death, of pleasure and pain. But the Lord here tells us the secret by which he participates without involvement in creation, non-attachment. Although the sole doer, he has no egoism and so remains free. Man, realizing that all, quote, all this is God, not I and mine, unquote, becomes a disinterested spectator, free from selfish motives and inflammatory emotions, whether viewing his own life or the life of others. In placing his children on this mechanical marvel, the rotating earth, God wishes them to manage the cosmic show, but with his guidance, not in the chaotic ways of deluded men. To exist without peace of mind in this world is to dwell in a kind of Hades, but the man of divine perceptions finds the earth is a blissful abode. A dreamer experiencing a nightmare is torture, but as soon as he realizes it to be a subconscious prank of consciousness, he laughs about it. The average man attaches the great importance to the worldly spectacle, but a yogi takes the dream show lightly, and only God seriously. Verse 10, quote, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, it is solely my impregnating presence that causes Mother Nature to give birth to the animate and inanimate. Because of me, through Prakriti, the worlds revolve in alternating cycles of creation and dissolution. Unquote. And the commentary continues, even though God, as the divine cosmic light, is the creator director of the delusive films of nature and her happy and hurtful dream picture productions, still he is not the direct doer. Prakriti, animated by his light, does all the mischief and all the good in creation. Yet the cosmic mother could not exist nor operate without the power and guidance of the unmanifested divine. God and nature are thus invisible through diverse God and nature are thus indivisible, though diverse, like two sides of a coin. The Hindu scriptures tell us that even Prakriti, so close to the transcendental Lord, finds it hard to grasp the way in which he mysteriously manifests through her, making her feel that she is the creator, while in reality he is the unseen origin of all. Verses 11 and 12. Quote 11, the ignorant, oblivious of my transcendental nature as the maker of all creatures, discount also my presence within the human form. And verse 12, lacking in insight, their desires and thoughts and actions all vain, such men possess the deluded nature of fiends and demons, unquote. And the commentary continues, Prakriti has three gunas, or manifesting qualities. These two stanzas refer to men with the predominance of tamas, or ignorance, the nature of demons, and those with an overabundance of rajas, or activity, or for selfish goals, the nature of fiends. The following stanza, 13, mentions men filled with the third guna, sattva, or wisdom. And verses 13 through 15, quote 13, But Mahatmas, quote unquote, great souls, O son of Pritha Arjuna, expressing in their nature divine qualities, offer the homage to their undeviating minds to me, knowing me as the imperishable source of all life. 14. Constantly absorbed in me, bowing low with adoration, fixed and resolute in their high aspiration, they worship me and ever praise my name. And 15. Others also performing the yajna of knowledge worship me, the cosmic bodied Lord, in various ways, first as the many and then as the one. Unquote. And the commentary elucidates sattvic beings, free from the blinding delusions of the rajas and tamas qualities, see God within and without in all things, and thus remain always in his proximity. Their uncompromising goodness and undistracted devotion offer no resistance to the natural pull of the soul towards spirit, the pull of the Lord's love that pursues every soul even unto the farthest reaches of delusion. Stanza 14 refers to the devotional path, bhakti. The mind and the mind and heart of the bhakta, immersed in God's love, are always intent on Him. Every thought and action is grasped as a new opportunity to love and worship Him. Through their love emanating eyes and actions, and the magnetic bliss of their silent devotion, they draw other souls unto God. The Lord is glorified by the eloquence of such an exemplary life. There is no other way to praise Him. Stanza 15 refers to the way of wisdom, jnana. As the yogi progresses spiritually, he offers his manifold states of knowledge as oblations in the ever-increasing fire of wisdom. In this way, he worships the infinite as the myriad manifestations of his divine perceptions. Finally, all are commingled in one blessed blaze. Through many perceptions, the devotee learns to worship the Lord with a sole perception, and the knowing of Him as the Absolute. First the yogi sees, quote, God is all, unquote, then grasps the ultimate simplicity, quote, unquote, God. Verse 16, quote, I am the rite, the sacrifice, the oblation to ancestors, the medicinal herb, the holy chant, the melted butter, the sacred fire, and the offering, unquote. The Vedic sacrificial ceremonies in which clarified butter is poured on fire symbolizes the surrender of the self to the self, so the ego to the soul. All the gifts that God has bestowed on man are offered in turn to him by the devotee. The sattvic devotee considers all his actions, whether secular, spiritual, or ritualistic, as holy rites and oblations offered in the purifying fire of God awareness. And as dream objects and beings cannot be separated from their dreamer, similarly the oblating devotee honors the Lord as the giver, the offering, and the receiver. Okay. Verse 17, quote, Of this world I am the father, the mother, the ancestor, the preserver, the sanctifier, the all-inclusive object of knowledge, the cosmic Om, and also the Vedic lore, unquote. And the commentary continues, the unmanifested spirit is the supreme cause, the ancestor of God, the father of creation, Sat, or cosmic consciousness. God the Son, his reflection in creation as the preserver, which is Tat, the Krishna, or Christ consciousness, and God the Holy Ghost, which is Om, the mother or cosmic nature, bringing forth the worlds through her creative vibration. Spirit as the sole reality is the one object of knowledge, comprehending which man will simultaneously understand all other knowledge. Spirit is the sanctifier that purifies man of sin and delusion, and it too is the source of Vedic or eternal wisdom. Indeed. Verse 18, quote, I am the ultimate goal, the upholder, the master, the witness, the shelter, the refuge, and the one friend. I am the origin, the dissolution, the foundation, the cosmic storehouse, and the seed indestructible. And the commentary continues, God is the one friend of man, he who eventually restores to his bosom all his dream children. He is the one consciousness that preserves, dissolves, and witnesses all creation. The one storehouse wherein all cosmic dream blueprints are kept during the kalpas of dissolution, and at the beginning of the great kalpas of manifestation, it is he, as the imperishable seed, that fertilizes Prakriti and vivifies her protean forms. Verse 19, quote, I bestow solar heat, O Arjuna, and give or withhold the rain. Immortality am I, and also death. I am being, Sat, and non-being, Asat. Again, remember the A before words. The Lord, unquote, and this is the short commentary for that. The Lord here presents himself as the great paradox, as the creator of Maya, the cosmic magician. He is responsible for the, quote, pairs of opposites, unquote, the contrasting suggestions accepted by all creatures under Maya's hypnotic sway: heat and cold, life and death, truth and falsehood, reality and illusion. The right method of worshiping, and this is a whole different section here, big subsection called the right method of worshiping God, verses 20 to 21. Verse 20, quote, the Veda ritualists, cleansing themselves of sin by the Soma rite, worship me by yajna, which is a sacrifice, thus win their desire for entry into heaven. There, in the sacred kingdom of the astral deities, devotees enjoy the subtle celestial pleasures. And verse 21, quote, but after delighting in the glorious higher regions, such beings at the expiration of their good karma return to earth, thus abiding by the scriptural regulations, desiring the enjoyments, the promised celestial reward thereof, they travel the cyclic path between heaven and earth. Unquote. And the commentary continues, those who desire celestial fruits of actions and who therefore purify themselves by Vedic rites or any other scriptural rituals or injunctions, and by right living, receiving the satisfaction of their heart's aspiration, entrance into the holy astral abodes. Weird. That's a weird way of saying it. But that quote-unquote entrance leads inevitably to a quote-unquote exit, because such devotees did not desire God, but only his gifts. For such aspirants, good karma produces only a period of astral enjoyment. Whether long or short, that period will end. But those who single-heartedly love the Lord and who work for him without desire for the fruits of action, those who perform the true yajna of yoga, offering the self to the self, and who by guru-given yoga techniques purify their bodies and consciousness with the soma nectar of divine life energy, win the eternal liberation. Good dreams, those of high astral spheres, are still dreams, and keep the soul deluded. A wise yogi does not wish to spend incarnations traveling from one good dream to another. Confinement in beautiful dream prisons has no lure for him. Oneness with the ultimate reality is his sole goal. Verse 22, quote, to men who meditate on me as their very own, ever united to me by incessant worship, I supply their deficiencies and make permanent their gains, unquote. And the commentary continues, devotees who are faithful to their Creator, perceiving him in all the diverse phases of life, discover that he has taken charge of their lives, even in the smallest detail, and makes smooth their paths by bestowal of divine foresight. Indeed. Thus saith the wise King Solomon, quote, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths, unquote. He who preserves the colossal cosmic dream upholds lovingly the wisdom of yogis. Once they have found it, and the inexhaustible Lord finds no difficulty in supplying his devotees with food and shelter for the body, as well as other needful accessories of dream life. This stanza of the Gita reminds us of Christ's words, quote, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, unquote. Most men foolishly spend their valuable lives in seeking material riches, which must be forsaken at death. Yogis use their efforts to find imperishable wisdom. Their spiritual wealth is deposited for them by God in the bank of eternity to be used by them forever. Verses 23 and 24, 23, quote, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, even devotees of other gods who sacrifice to them with faith worship me alone, though not in the right way. Verse 24, I am indeed the only enjoyer and Lord of all sacrifices. But they, the worshippers of my lesser forms, do not perceive me in my true nature. Hence they fall, unquote. A devotee who offers his, this is the commentary, devotee who offers his allegiance to other gods, even the highest astral deities, does not worship God as the infinite, but only as one or more of his finite manifestations. These, like the rest of creation, are mere appearances and not reality. A devotee can rise only as high as the object and the objective of his worship, and a virtuous man, and a virtuous man appropriates lesser gods or worships with the goal of attaining the glorified pleasures of a certain life in heaven. The Supreme Being is indeed touched by the seeker's devotion to him in whatever form, and in the after-death state in the celestial regions grants him the fulfillment of his expectations. But after a time, being still in the realms of return, he falls again to mortal birth and must work anew to gain divine merit. Thus does he dream the dreams of coming and going, so long as he remains asleep in delusive separation from the indivisible spirit, who is at once the dream, the dreamer, and the ever-awake dreamless one. The quote-unquote right way of worship which leads to deliberation is through yoga meditation that bestows the samadhi of divine union with spirit. Verse 25, quote, devotees of the astral deities go to them, ancestral worshippers go to the mains, to the nature spirits go to those who seek them, but my devotees come to me, unquote. And the commentary continues. The Gita, chapter 8, verse 6, states that the predominant feeling at the time of death determines one's future residence. It is in accordance with their devotional trends that men go to the high astral worlds of the deities, or to the regions of the ancestral heroes, or to the abode of elemental spirits, or to eternal freedom, the supreme vibrationless sphere of God. Those who commune through their lives with the Lord are at death not cast by the karmic judge into any cosmic dream prison, but go unto their Father to become pillars in his mansion on manifested chaos. Having no attachment to this or any other world or form of existence, they need, quote, go no more out, unquote, which is out of Revelation, verse 26, quote, the reverent presentation to me of a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water given with pure intention is a devotional offering accepted in my sight, unquote. And the commentary continues. Jesus said that the small gift of 2 mites presented with devotion by a poor widow was more pleasing to God than the wealth that was ostentatiously proffered by irreligious men. The outpouring of heartfelt love is the only quote-unquote sacrifice the Lord desires from his creatures. God says, quote, great yogis are rare, so I seldom receive from earth dwellers the most precious gift, complete soul surrender to me. Therefore I accept happily even a little flower, a tear sprinkled and devotional fragrant, from those who have little time for me, though I give my time in gifts to them, unquote. This stanza also means that man's most fleeting thought and most trifling action may be used as stepping stones towards his presence. True devotees devoutly offer to him the living leaves of their proliferated spiritual understanding and perceptions, the choicest blossoms of love from the secret garden of their hearts, the fruits of their selfless actions, and the sanctifying sacred waters of intuitive inner divine communions gathered reverently from the river of meditation. Excuse me. Indeed, how compassionately indulgent and impartial the Lord is, that he is so readily recognizes not only the mighty ecstasy of lordly yogis, but also the, quote, widow's mite, unquote, of those who can give little to him, but do give all they have. Yogis perceive God's response in glorious, even spectacular ways. Striving devotees are blessed with divine thoughts and aspirations. God's loving silent voice encourages and coaxes them forward to his waiting presence. Nice picture. Verses 27 to 32. Yeah, I forgot these chapters get shorter. Quote 27. Whatever actions thou dost perform, O son of Kunti Arjuna, whether in eating or in observing spiritual rites, or in gift bestowing, or in self-disciplining, dedicate them all as offerings to me. Thus no action of thine can enchain thee with good or evil karma. With thy self steadfastly anchored in me by yoga and renunciation, thou shalt win freedom and come unto me. And 29, I am impartial towards all beings. To me none is hateful, none is dear. But those who give me their heart's love are in me as I am in them. And verse 30, even a consummate evildoer who turns away from all these to worship me exclusively may be counted among the good because of his righteous resolve. Verse 31, he will fast, become a virtuous man, and obtain unending peace. Tell all assuredly, O Arjuna, that my devotee never perishes. And finally, verse 32, taking shelter in me, all beings can achieve the supreme fulfillment, be they those of sinful birth or women or Vaishyas or Sudras, unquote. And the commentary begins. In these stanzas, the Lord offers the sweetest solace and the highest hope to all of his children, even the erring and bewildered. Through steadfast practice of yoga meditation, renunciation of desires and attachments by loving dedication to all actions to God, repentance and right resolution, not only can the righteous attain liberation, but even the wickedest of men may speedily emerge from sin into sanctity, from ignorance into the healing light of wisdom. No man may be said to be so depraved that he is outside the pale of divine mercy. And such are the potency and mysterious workings of the soul that sometimes even the most evil of men have changed into saints. Vicious persons convicting themselves by their own consciences often judge their souls to be lost forever, but the Gita gives assurance that they too may recover their long forgotten spiritual heritage. No sin is unforgivable, no evil unsuperable, for the world of relativity contains no absolutes. Indeed. Stanza 32 does not cast a slur against women and those of low birth and worldly businessmen, Vaishyas, and body-identified laborers, Sudras. No scripture suggests that these are the, quote, worst among sinners, unquote. The meaning is, for a true devotee, all social inequalities are negated. Unlike society, God never disqualifies anyone because of occupation, sex, or birth. In reality, the quote-unquote family tree of all beings is divinely impressive. Are they not children of the Most High and co-heirs to an eternal kingdom? Verse 33, quote, how easily then may I be attained by sainted Brahmins, knowers of God or Brahman, and pious royal sages, Raja Rishis. Thou who hast entered this impermanent and unhappy world, adore only me, i.e. spirit. And very short commentary. Even sinful men and women may retract their footsteps to the hallowed home, how unhampered is the journey then for spiritually inclined people? Indeed. Verse 34, quote, on me fix thy mind, be thou my devotee, with ceaseless worship bow reverently before me. Having thus united thyself to me as thy highest goal, thou shalt be mine own, unquote. And commentary continues. Thus does Bhagavan Krishna summarize the discourse in this chapter on resolving by self-realization through yoga the mystery of the simultaneous immanence and transcendence of spirit. Through the divine science of yoga, or union with God, the yogi unites himself with the transcendent spirit beyond the dreams of manifestation, while also remaining immanent and active with spirit in the cosmic dream drama. In yoga meditation, O devotee, fix thy mind unwaveringly on God with devotion. Surrender to him the ego consciousness and all its dream delusions. In the inner rite of true worship, oblate the little self into the self, i.e., the little self, the ego, into the self, the soul, in the sacred fire of divine communion with spirit. Look solely to him who is the Lord of all. He is the consummation of the rainbow chases of incarnations. In him, all motley hued desires merge in the one splendor of bliss, in which the soul is forever diademed with spirit. The self-realized yogi is a prince of peace, sitting on the throne of poise, directing his kingdom of activity, wholly devoted to God in heart and mind, sacrificing to him the fruits of all his actions. Quote, that devotee, unquote, saith the Lord, quote, I have obtained me, and remaining continually united to me, shall truly be mine own, unquote. Oh, that's the end of the chapter. Wow, a 30-minute chapter. I can't believe it. Yep, like I said, they go quicker at the end. Let me take a quick drink here. Okay. Chapter 10, The Infinite Manifestations of the Unmanifest Spirit. Okay, I think everything sounds good. All right, and the major subsection here is the unborn and beginningless beyond form and conception, verses 1 through 3. Quote, Blessed Lord said, verse 1, O mighty armed Arjuna, hear thou more of my supreme utterance. For thy highest good I will speak further to thee, who listeneth joyfully. In verse 2, neither the multitude of angels nor the great sages know my uncreated nature. For even the devas and rishis are created beings and hence have an origin in me. And verse 3, but whoever realizes me to be the unborn and beginningless as well as the sovereign Lord of creation, that man has conquered delusion and attained the sinless state even while wearing a mortal body. Unquote. And the commentary starts. Stanza 2 does not mean that liberated angels and rishis do not understand the self-evolved nature of deity. For stanza 3 expressly states that even a mortal may become a jivan mukta, freed while living. By that very realization, God is both beyond and creation and in creation. So creation being sat and in creation being tat. Again, Holy Ghost, God, right? These stanzas signify, however, that full emergence in the divine transcendence is not attainable in any created being. He who has an origin cannot be the originless. God's essential nature is spirit, not form, infinity, not finiteness. Disembodiment, the state of unimaginable freedom achieved by the devotee after he has dissolved by wisdom his three imprisoning vehicles, physical, astral, and causal, is necessary before the soul of man can rejoin spirit per se. That's another good clue. This next subsection is called Even Liberated Saints are required to accept some delusion when they incarnate. Stanza 2 affirms the metaphysical truth that all emancipated beings who accept re-embodiment at God's command are required to work in harmony with the cosmic mother or lawful nature, to whom the Lord has given full power over the phenomenal worlds. To a certain extent, even such exalted beings have to place themselves nominally under nature's cosmic delusion and thus forego full realization of spirit, immutable, unborn, and unmanifested. They are obliged to accept Maya or delusion as the only means by which their bodies assume visibility at all. The beam of light from a motion picture projector produces no images on the screen unless it is passed through shadow forms on a film. Similarly, the soul reality has no form without the presence of the variegated vibratory film of Maya, the principle of duality that divides the indivisible and through cosmic vibration projects forms on the screen of time and space. Manifestation of any form testifies to the operation of nature's Maya cosmic vibration and thus pertains to creation, not to the uncreated and vibrationless. This stanza therefore gives us an explanation for the sometimes puzzling conduct of fully illumined masters. During his crucifixion, Jesus became temporarily conscious of the cosmic delusion. Perceiving his dream body and feeling its agonies, he cried, quote, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Unquote. Other liberated saints also have appeared to undergo physical sufferings or to display sympathetic identifications with other people in their troubles and joys. Jesus and other masters wept and behaved in various other ways like mortal beings. But no one should wrongly think that the great sages and prophets are not aware of God's true nature. These perfect devotees who, even after liberation, wear an earthly body in order to carry on certain activities in the world of phenomena, are simply watching about the ever-present power of cosmic delusion. However, such exalted ones are able to dismiss their body dream at will, and thus to perceive the transcendental spirit. The next big subsection is called the diverse modifications of God's nature, verses 4 to 5. Okay, just making sure the sound's still good. It sounds better. So, quote, discrimination, wisdom, lack of delusion, forgiveness, truth, control of the senses, peace of mind, joy, sorrow, birth, death, fear, courage, harmlessness, equanimity, serenity, self-discipline, charity, fame, and infamy, these diverse states of being spring from me alone as modifications of my nature. Unquote. And the commentary elucidates, as everything in man's dream is made of his consciousness, so everything in the cosmic dream proceeds from the mind of God. Because he is the creator of cosmic nature, with her dualistic principle of delusion, Maya, or the law of opposites, and her triple qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas, the Lord is responsible for all good and evil, for all contrasts and contradictions and relativities in the unfoldments of the human mind and human destiny. This is not to say that a person is good or evil, joyous or sorrowful, because God has so ordered it. Rather, all contrasting potentials are God's doing through the laws of nature. But how they manifest in or through the individual depends on that person's karmic pattern, created by his own use and misuse of free will, which sets into motion in his life the sattva, rajas, or tamas qualities of nature. All mental states and all inner and outer conditionings of mankind subserve a divine purpose. By discrimination, wisdom, self control, and other righteous means, and by experience in many incarnations of oppositional states, birth and death, courage and fear, fame and infamy, joy and sorrow, the human being seeks at last the secondless, the true, unique. Verse 6, quote, the great seven rishis, the primeval four, and the 14 manus are all modifications of my nature, born of my thought, and endowed with creative powers like mine. From these progenitors come all living creatures on earth. Unquote. As cited in Gita 4, chapter 4, verse 25, and chapter 8, verses 4, the universe is created through the differentiation of spirit. The Absolute becomes God the Father, transcendental beyond creation, and the Christ or Kudasta intelligence, his pure reflected omnipresence in creation, and the Prakriti, or Holy Ghost, with its 6 other intelligences or deities, the Lord's active creative consciousness. Pardon me while I take another drink. This present stanza refers to further modifications of God's variant presence in cosmic activity. Like an infinite kaleidoscope, the individualized multi-divisions of his ubiquitous intelligence. Let me go back. Like an infinite kaleidoscope, the individualized multi-divisions of his ubiquitous intelligence, quote, by hundreds and by thousands, unquote, as declared in chapter 11, unite and divide, combine and recombine within the Mayic cylinder of time and space to produce the myriad patterns of creation that delight and awe both gods and men. Each new modulation, according to its unique purpose, is assigned in Hindu scriptures as a characteristic personality and name. The Bible refers to the symbolic Adam and Eve and their descendants as the origin of the human race. The Hindu scriptures describe the becoming of all creatures from the Prajapatis, the divine, quote, lords of the universe, unquote, born from the mind of God. This subsection is called everlasting, ever conscious, ever new bliss from which creation evolves. The primeval 4 mind-born sons of Brahma, the creator are Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. Symbolically, they are the firstborn differentiation of spirit from which creation evolves. They are the pure creative nature of God, Mahaprakriti, or Holy Ghost. As their very names imply, they are the Lord's eternal, Sanatana, quote-unquote, everlasting, consciousness of bliss, Sanandana, having joy, that exists from the beginning, Sanaka, quote, former or ancient, unquote, and is ever new, Sanat Kumara, quote, ever a youth, unquote. So, to go back without the parenthesis stuff, I'll say, as their very names imply, they are the Lord's eternal, everlasting, quote unquote, consciousness of bliss, having joy, that, quote unquote, that exists from the beginning, i.e., former or ancient, and is ever new, ever a youth, quote unquote. These sons of Brahma remained ever pure, innocent youths, declining to create progeny. Yet all things evolve from this bliss, Ananda. For inherent in Mahaprakriti, along with the Lord's eternal joy, are the three gunas, or attributes of creation, sattva, rajas, and tamas. These qualities are equilibrated in a quiescent state of Mahaprakriti, but when Rajas, the activating attribute as Brahma, the creator, is roused, it enlivens also Sattva, the nourishing quality, Vishnu, the preserver, and Tamas, the degenerative quality, Shiva, the destroyer, disillusion, the inevitability of all things in the realm of change and illusion. The will of God to enjoy his bliss through many forms sends forth his Ananda as four fundamental creative ideas impinged in these three gunas: vibration, Aum; time, Kala, the idea of change; space, Disha, the idea of division of the one eternal being; and atom, Anu, the idea of particles for the manifestation of form. The Sapta Maharishis are the seven original rishis whom the Vedas were revealed. The divine beings said to have been liberated in spirit in the solar age: Marichi, Atri, Angiras, Pulaha, Kratu, Pulastya, and Vasistha. These represent seven principal powers of life and consciousness proceeding from the macrocosmic sun, or vibratory light of the creative cosmic energy, Om, and the microcosmic quote-unquote sun, or light of the spiritual I, in man. From the lineage of the 14 Manus, fathers of mankind, all beings descended. They are Svayambhuva, or Svarachisha. I'm not going to read all these words. There's a lot of them. There are all these different names. Each successive Manu is associated with a particular cycle of creative manifestation and dissolution. The seventh Manu, Vivasvata, quote-unquote sunborn, from Vivasvat, the deity of the sun, is defined as the progenitor of the present race of beings. See Chapter 4, verses 1 through 2, concerning the symbology of Vivasvat and Manu as representing the descension of consciousness from Vivasvat, the sun, or light of creative cosmic energy, to Manu, the mind, or Manas, the instrument from which sentient human consciousness derives, hence the quote-unquote origin of man. This next big subsection is titled, In Joy and Devotion the Wise Adore Him, verses 7 and 8. Verse 7, quote, He who realizes by yoga the truth of my prolific manifestations and the creative and dissolving power of my divine yoga is unshakably united to me. This is beyond doubt. And verse 8, I am the source of everything. From me all creation emerges. With this realization, the wise, awestricken, adore me, unquote. And the commentary continues, The liberated man, beholding spirit as the creator of countless universes of the endless procession of angels, Manus, Rishis, human beings, and the lower forms of life, and the innumerable processes of their perceptions and the modes of their becomings, is filled with awe at the hitherto unknown oceanic vastness spread out behind the little wave of his consciousness. Ekam Sat, only one exists. In the Vedas, the cosmic is said to evolve like a spider web out of God's being. The Lord is the divine thread, or sutra, or unifying essence running through all experiences and all expressions of life and matter. Quote, the universe is presented in every one of its particles. Everything is made of the hidden stuff. The world globes itself in a drop of dew. The true doctrine of omnipresence is that God appears with all his parts in every moss and cobweb. Verse 9, quote, Their thoughts fully on me, their being surrendered to me, enlightening one another, proclaiming me always. My devotees are contented and joyful. God-united yogis, their consciousness and life merge in him, perceive the immense panorama of creation through the Lord's omnipresent life and consciousness. Such great devotees are aware through intuitional power of one another's presence. They commune together to give expression to their overflowing love for God. Such men alone know joy and the contentment of spirit that causes them to cry, quote, I am full, O Lord, in thyself I have found all treasure, unquote. What wonder, then, that the yogi urges the worldly man to forsake the momentary pleasures of death of earth and to embrace the giver of everlasting bliss. As a drunken man feels throughout his body the injurious thrill of alcohol, so a God-intoxicated devotee, conscious of his augmented being in the vast cosmic body of nature, feels an ever-rejuvenating exultation at the contact of omnipresent, joyful Om. Om, Aum. It was the bliss wine, the cosmical vibration of Om, the Holy Ghost, that filled Christ's disciples on the day of Pentecost. The desireless yogi, withdrawing his mind from the excitements and bewilderments of the cosmic dream, experiences an endless satisfaction that is unknown to seekers of sense pleasures. As a prisoner regaining his liberty after many years is suffused with happiness, so the yogi who emerges from the confinement of numerous incarnations into the freedom of spiritual identity is overwhelmed by inexhaustible joy. Verses 10 and 11. Quote, to those thus ever attached to me and worship me with love, I impart that discriminative wisdom, Buddha Yoga, by which they attain me utterly. And verse 11, from sheer compassion, I, the divine indweller, set alight in them the radiant lamp of wisdom, which banishes the darkness that is born of ignorance, unquote. And the commentary continues, the realized yogi, through the intuitive discriminative wisdom he receives from attunement with God, knows both the immanent and transcendent states of spirit. He can emerge in divine unity with the absolute samadhi. And he can also delight in a dualistic relationship with his Creator as a devotee beholding and worshipping in the temple of reverential love the all-pervasive connate spirit, the cosmic dream idol whose form is the phenomenal universe. As it is the Lord who has caused man to dream this dream of delusion, it is he alone who can bestow awakening. When a mortal being tires of groping through the darkness of unknowing and uses his God-given intelligence to ask the right questions, follow the right actions, and demand enlightenment, God, in his infinite compassion, responds to that sincere entreaty. His grace lights the inner wisdom lamp in that devotee, dispelling dark shadows of delusive dreaming with the banishment of ignorance. The awakened devotee, quote, attains him utterly, unquote. And I just want to stop here real quick because that paragraph is super important. When a mortal begins being tires of groping through the darkness of unknowing and uses his God-given intelligence to ask the right questions, follow the right actions, and demand enlightenment, God in his infinite compassion responds to that sincere entreaty, because it really comes down to the idea that you have to want this more than anything else in your whole life. The kind of thing that brings you down to your knees and you're just like, I've had enough of this life. Get me out of here. I can say that by experience because that happened to me. The next day that happened to me. It was one book after another thing, after another experience. It all led me to here, speaking to all of you good people in the interwebs. So this next big section is titled, The Devotee Prays to Hear from the Lips of the Lord Himself. Quote, what are thy many aspects and forms, unquote. Verses 12 and 13. Quote, Arjuna said, the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Shelter, the Supreme Purity art thou. All the great sages, the divine seer Narada, as well as Asita, Devala, and Vyasa have thus described thee as the self-evolved eternal being, the original deity, uncaused and omnipresent, and now thou thyself tellest me, unquote. In awe, this is the commentary, in awe Arjuna acclaims the Lord for having made known to him his transcendental being. The uncreated is indeed the very one to whose reality the illumined sages of all lands and all epochs have testified. Verse 14, quote, O Keshava Krishna, I consider as eternal truth all thou hast revealed to me. Indeed, O my Lord, neither the Devas, gods, nor the Danavas, titans, know the infinite modes of thine appearances, unquote. And the Commentary elucidates the astral forces of creative intelligence, the powerful personifications of good and evil, the gods or divine forces, and the anti-gods or delusive forces are nevertheless only partial expressions of deity. So even they, the agents of creation, owing to their innate limitations and to their degree of identification with their divinely ordained roles in the phenomenal worlds, cannot know the whole of the infinite and transcendent Lord. How much less, then, may be grasped by the mortal beings whosoever divinely endowed, who is circumscribed by embodiment and demonic ignorance. Verses 15 and 16. Quote, O divine Purusha, O origin of beings, O Lord of all creators, O God of gods, O sustainer of the world, verily thou alone knowest thyself by thyself. And verse 16, therefore please tell me inexhaustively of thy divine powers and qualities by which thine omnipresence sustaineth the cosmos. Unquote. And the commentary continues, the unenlightened man spins 1,000 speculative webs, hoping to seize the elusive truth. But what theory has captured it? The yogi, however, seeks the solutions to the cosmic mysteries from the lips of the omniscient mystifier. Quote, he alone knoweth himself by himself. Unquote. Arjuna therefore sought the answers to the final enigmas from the, quote, Lord of all creatures, he who abides in each heart as the divine teacher. Verse 17, quote, O great yogi Krishna, how shall I always meditate in order to know thee truly? In what aspects and forms, O blessed Lord, art thou to be conceived by me? Unquote. The commentary continues, Arjuna salutes the Lord as, quote, the great yogi, unquote, or uniter, he who joins triple factors, the cosmic dreamer, the process of dreaming, and the objective cosmic dream, in one single and simultaneous perception of his inimitable mind. As God is both the absolute and the manifest, the query of the devotee is, quote, shall I meditate on thee as cosmic consciousness, the dreamless spirit, or on one of thy various dream aspects? If I worship thee as having attributes, what are thy many aspects and forms, O Lord, knowing which I shall know how to focus my mind on thee in meditation? In which of thy manifestations may I best recognize thee? Unquote. And this next big subsection is called I will, quote, I will tell thee of my phenomenal expressions, unquote. Verses 18 and 20, quote, 18, O Janardana Krishna, tell me more at great length of thy good yoga powers and self-manifestations, for never can I hear enough of thy nectared speech. The blessed Lord said, 19, very well, O best of the princes, Arjuna, I will indeed tell thee of my phenomenal expressions, but only the most outstanding ones, for there is no end to my variety. 20. Verse 20, O conqueror of sleep, Arjuna, I am the self and the heart of all creatures. I am their origin, existence, and finality. Unquote. And this is the short commentary. In addressing Arjuna as Guda Kesha, quote, conqueror of sleep, unquote, quote, the Lord implies that divine truths are known only by the man who is awakened from the Maya trance of delusion. God here assumes total responsibility for all living things. He dreams the procession of created beings. He preserves them in their existences, and he merges them in the state of cosmic disillusion. A liberated man attains the true finality by realizing that his only life has been ever present within him as the immutable self. Verse 21, quote, among the Adityas, 12 effulgent beings, I am Vishnu. Among luminaries, I am the radiating sun. Among the Maruts, the 49 wind gods, I am Marichi. Among heavenly bodies, I am the moon. Unquote. And the commentary elucidates, in the previous stanza, God was described as the origin, existence, and finality of all beings. From stanza 21 through 41, the Lord elaborates on his prominent manifestations among the beings, forces, and objects that are the cause and the results of his creative, preservative, and terminative activities in the cosmos. The light of God equally pervades all beings and all objects, but those of superior qualities reflect his manifestation to a greater degree, just as a diamond, by its transparency, reflects more light than a piece of charcoal, though both are made of carbon. And this subsection is called the government of the universe, assisted by many minor manifestations of the Creator Lord. As noted in chapter 10, verse 6, in addition to the primary powers of creation, transcendental God, his reflection as the Kutastha intelligence, immanent in creation and cosmic nature with its 6 other intelligences, or quote-unquote angels. The government of the universe is assisted by many minor manifestations of the Creator Lord. This chapter of the Gita is designated the course on Vibhuti Yoga, depicting the attributes of God that declare his all-pervading manifestations in the universe. The differentiation of his consciousness, of which there is no limit, chapter 10, verse 40, is God's divine yoga by which substantial worlds and beings are spun on ethereal threads of consciousness. Much of the contents in this chapter, especially in these latter verses, has an esoteric relevance to the intricate science of yoga that defines the subtle powers behind the gross becomings. To interpret these fully would proliferate this text unduly. Intimation of the symbology will suffice, for as Sri Krishna says in verse 42, quote, "What needs hast thou for the manifold details of this wisdom?" Unquote. Towards this end, the seer developed simple yoga techniques of meditation, such as Kriya Yoga, that set into motion the forces that purify and uplift the consciousness to divine realization of the transcendent Lord, the ultimate simplicity, who is the repository of all complexities. To touch the infinite is to know in an instant all knowledge that could scarce be contained in ponderous volumes. Cosmic nature, mother of all vibrations, has 3 phases, as previously noted, the creative, preservative, and dissolving states, governed respectively by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. These deities are indigenous in the cosmic mother vibration. They work through the 6 angels and the 12 celestial adityas, referred to in the literal translation of this stanza, and through many other quote-unquote beings or intelligent creative powers to carry on the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the vast universe and its government. Quote, "In the beginning, God said, 'Let there be light,'" unquote. God vibrated his wish to create, and light became manifest. He brought forth the intelligent Holy Ghost Om vibration, and which became manifest as objective light and sound. These 2 properties of Om in various combinations constitute all objective creation. The 12 effulgent deities mentioned in this stanza derive their immutable light and power from Om, the Holy Ghost or Mahaprakriti. They are variously referred to in the scriptures as eternal sustainers of the celestial light that is the source of all luminosities. In the Upanishads, they are described as the 12 months of the year. In the microcosm of man, their powers are manifested as the instigators of the activities of the 6 spinal centers from the coccyx to the medulla. See the Gita, we already read chapter 8, verses 23 and 26, wherein the 12 months of the year are explained as the 6 months of the northern course of the sun, the way of light, ascension through the 6 centers or to cosmic consciousness, and the 6 months of the southern course of the sun, the way of darkness, the descension of the consciousness through the spinal centers into the body consciousness. Vishnu is hailed as chief among these primal luminous intelligences, for he is the maintainer of the constructive, preservative state of creation. There can be no manifestation of spirit without this power of preservation. Creation in the formative state is incomplete, therefore imperfect. It decays and disappears during the state of dissolution, but the preservative or Vishnu state is stupendous, spectacular, an awesome display of the Lord's attributes made manifest. Among objective manifestations in the solar system, God prominently displays his cosmic light in the positive sun and the negative moon. The sun represents the fatherhood of God, and the moon the motherhood of cosmic nature, the consort of God. Oh my God. Oh boy. This positive negative principle repeats itself throughout nature, quote, parenting, unquote, all objective matter. The sun-moon analogy is recurrent throughout yoga treatises, representing positive and negative spirit and nature. Marichi is proclaimed as chief of the Maruts, or 49 wind gods. According to the ancients, various air currents blow around the earth, and one referred to as Marichi is the most beneficial. The esoteric implication is evident in the fact that Marichi is also designated as one of the 7 Maharishis. That's chapter 10, verse 6. In the body of man, there are 7 principal life currents that are amplified into 49 specialized life forces. There you go again with these numbers and the esoteric meanings. Verse 22, quote, among the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. Among the gods, I am the Vasava, Indra. I am Vasava, or Indra. Among the senses, I am the mind, or Manas. In creatures, I am the intelligence, unquote. And the commentary continues, some pedants do not concur with the Gita's commendation of the Samaveda, as it is generally considered a derivation in the form of metric hymns from the verses in the more honored Rig Veda. A deeper significance is here implied. Sama means quote-unquote calm, or quote-unquote tranquil, from the word saman, quote, calming, tranquilizing, unquote, from sa, with a lion above the a, meaning meditation. The acquisition of true knowledge, Veda, true realization comes not from scriptural tenets or outward rituals, but from inner intuitive perception. When by meditation, interiorization, the mind is tranquil, samana, the attention of the yogi focuses at the kudastha center of universal consciousness in the forehead, and through the omniscient, intuitive vision of the spiritual eye, the devotee becomes a seer of Veda, truth. And in the Vedas, and particularly in the rhythmic meter of the Samaveda, there is a strictly regulated order in anupurvi of the words, and a phonological rules for combinations of sounds, and for the recitations of letters, which conduce to such interiorization. Each syllable is endowed with significance and spiritualizing vibration. The Gita verse goes on to hail Indra as Vasava, chief of the astral gods, a yogi who has controlled the oscillating emotions of the heart which arise from likes and dislikes, attraction and repulsion, the causes of pleasures and pain, is spoken of as having attained a spiritual state akin to that of all-conquering Indra. Oh boy. The manas, the sense mind, is the coordinator of the 10 senses, 5 of perception and 5 of action, and the cause of their externalization in the sensory organs. Mind is thus superior to its sensory instruments. Without mind, no sensations could be received, nor could activities be performed in response to sensations or thoughts of the ego. Mind exists even without the physical senses. In the dreamland, the mind can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, and can perform all actions without the instruments of the sensory organs. God manifests externally through the senses to enable man to perceive the physical cosmic dream of matter, a replica of which can be created by the mind within in the dreamland. But an even greater manifestation of God is the intelligence in creatures, that which interprets sensory impressions and discriminates. It is intelligence that gives man the power to choose the good dreams of life in preference to nightmares of evil. The discriminative faculty persuades the mind to turn away from the spurious pleasures of the senses and help it to concentrate on soul blessedness so that liberation can be achieved. The senses reveal the fluctuating dream world of matter. The mind reveals the changeable inner world in man, and intelligence converted into intuitive wisdom reveals the immutability of God. Verse 23, quote, of the Rudras, 11 radiant beings, I am their leader, Shankara, quote, the well-wisher, unquote. Of the Shakshas and the Rakshasas, astral demigoblins, I am Kubera, lord of the riches. Of the Vasas, 8 vitalizing beings, and I am Pavaka, the god of fire, the purifying power. And of mountain peaks, I am Meru, which is the center of the world in their pantheon and mythology, unquote. And the commentary continues. Actually, let me take a quick drink. Oops, sorry. The Rudras are 10 pranas, or intelligent life forces, plus their empowering supreme intelligence, Shankara, the quote, well-wisher, which sustains their existence. That sounds good. Just making sure. Like Croesus of old, who ruled in fabulous wealth in ancient Lydia, Kubera is considered the, quote, lord of the riches, unquote, in the astral world. This intelligence is the supreme power among the yakshas, yakshas and the rakshasas, the demi-goblins noted for their avaricious behavior, the negative forces that counter the good works and benefactions of the gods or divine forces, fulfilling the duality essential to the cosmic drama. When human beings succumb to delusive evils such as selfishness, greed, possessiveness, they take on the nature of yakshas, the generally inoffensive but sometimes dishonest and traitorous spirit forces that serve Kubera, the god of wealth. Carried to the extreme of evil inclinations, human beings take on the demonic personalities of Rakshasas, the most infamous of which was Ravana, a younger brother of Kubera, who plays the villainous role in the exalted epic the Ramayana. The Vasus gods referred to in this context are 8 vitalized deities or intelligent forces, among whom the purifying radiant energy, Pavaka, Agni, god of fire, is supreme. Among mountain peaks, God manifests himself most majestically as the sacred Mount Meru. Allegorically, Meru is the highest place of divine consciousness in the body, the top part of the cerebrum where God dwells as the soul. The spine, with its spiritual centers of divine consciousness, is often referred to as Meru Danda, the staff or rod whose crest is Meru. It is the scepter of the soul's sovereign power over the kingdom of the body. Oh my God. So it makes you think about all that symbolism going all the way back to Mesopotamia. Verse 24, quote, "And, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, understand me to be the chief among priests, Brihaspati among generals, and I am Skanda among the expanses of water. I am the ocean," unquote. Oh my goodness. The commentary starts, Brihaspati, preceptor of the astral deities, is the prototype of the priestly order. In his position as chief priest of the gods, he intercedes with the gods on behalf of men and is a protector of men against evil. In the Vedas, Brihaspati is also called Brahmanspati, lord of the evolution or expansion of creation through the great power of cosmic delusion. In the Golden Ages, wise priests were the spiritual protectors and advisors of royal sages. Raja Rishis, such as King Janaka. In this Gita verse, God declares his manifestations in all true gurus as well as in the chief preceptor Brihaspati. Skanda, another name for Kartikeya, god of war, son of Shiva, is the supreme warrior general among the armies of the gods. Allegorically, Skanda, quote, attacker, unquote, represents self-control, the leading warrior of the discriminative faculties in their fight with the sense-bound mental faculties. And it is the spiritual quality of self-control that drives ego and its armies of sense desires from the bodily kingdom and establishes therein the reign of King Soul. Water, because of its fluidity, which spreads out in all directions, is a symbol of the omnipresence of God in creation. Vishnu, the all-pervasive preserver of the universe, is depicted as Narayana, he who moves in the waters, from Nara, quote-unquote, water, and Ayana, quote-unquote, moving. He rests on the great serpent Shisha, creative power, floating on the eternal waters, creative elements which are in motion during the cycles of creation and are quiescent in spirit during periods of dissolution. A similar metaphor is found in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 in the Bible, quote, "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters," creative elements, unquote. Boy, these last couple of chapters have got so much good stuff that I'm going to be coming back to use. The vastness of the ocean and the sky have always captivated the human attention, stirring forgotten soul memories of the everlasting infinity of God. When one contemplates the expanse of ocean and sky, he escapes momentarily the confinements of finite matter and glimpses the infinite. The horizon where the azure sky and the blue brine meet I call the, quote, altar of God, unquote. Meditating before that most splendid altar of nature, I perceive the enthronement thereon of the majestic divine presence. Verse 25, quote, "Of the Maharishis, the mighty sages, I, Brigu, among words, I am the one syllable Om. Among yajnas, holy ceremonies, I am Japa yajna, silent, superconscious chanting. Among stationary objects, I am the Himalaya," unquote. And the commentary continues, a Maharishi is a completely liberated soul. He can remain in ecstatic union with the Absolute in the meditative state or carry on material activities with no loss of his divine perception. Wisdom is extolled as superior to action. The former denotes intuitive perception of the infinite, the latter is a means for that divine realization. Most Maharishis remain in the inactive wisdom state, but Bhrigu was a master of both wisdom and activity. Hence, God cites him as the exemplar of liberated sages. Wisdom in divine action is the balance, ideal, most pleasing to God, for that is also his nature. As the roar of the ocean is the composite sound of all its waves, so the cosmic sound of Om is the essence of all differentiated creative vibrations. Om is the symbol of God. Quote, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Unquote. The first manifestation in creation is the cosmic intelligent vibration, the intelligent Holy Ghost vibration whose sound is Om, or the Word. The spoken word in all languages, the astral lore of the gods, every natural and mechanical sound, all owing their origin to the cosmic sound of Om. Yogis tune in with this cosmic sound to expand their consciousness into the omnipresent perception of God. Yajna signifies a sacrificial rite for uniting the oblation or what it symbolizes with the object of worship, such as offering human desires into the purifying flame of spirit or casting the sense mind into the fire of cosmic consciousness. The ultimate purpose is yoga, the union of soul and spirit. This next subsection, called japa, the chanting God's name to neutralize material consciousness. Japa in general is a devotional repetition, aloud or mentally, of sacred prayers, words, or names of God. Chanting of any word creates a certain vibration. Practice of japa fills the mind with holy vibrations that neutralize the vibrations of material consciousness. There are special incantations used in India called mantras, which have great vibratory force. Repeating them aloud or mentally with sincere feeling, intelligence, understanding, and intense concentration and determination to preserve until divine contact is actually felt produces distinct results. Body and mind are charged with power as their vibratory rate is heightened. Any thought, though any kind of japa offered sincerely as yajna is advantageous, chanting or praying aloud has the effect or the defect of diluting the attention, diffusing the energy in the outer action of vocalizing. Overemphasis on devotional paraphernalia or on the external arrangements of the place of worship also tends to divert the soul outward. Indeed. Silent worship has greater power. One's mental energy goes more quickly and directly to the indwelling spirit. Absolutely. The supreme form of japa yajna is a superconscious chanting, divine union through the actual perception of the purifying vibration of holy sound. It does not involve any physical or mental repetition of a word or words. The yogi's attention is concentrated on listening to the actual cosmic sound of Om, the word of God, vibrating within him. Through this superior japa, the yogi expands his life from cosmic energy, his joy into divine ecstasy, his soul consciousness into cosmic consciousness, as he floats in the sphere of ever-expanding cosmic sound of Om. Among immobile creations in God's dream world, those manifestations in which animate life, mind, and intellect have not unfolded. His divine loftiness is most prominently displayed in the massive Himalaya, snow-crowned pinnacle of the earth, abode and guardian of saints. Verse 26, quote, among all trees I am the Ashvatha, the holy fig tree. Among the Devarishis, the divine sages, I am Narada. Among the Gandharvas, demigods, I am Tritraratha. Among the Siddhas, successful liberated beings, I am the Muni, Saint Kapila, unquote. And the commentary elucidates, quote-unquote, trees symbolize the bodies of all living things, plants, animals, man, possessing their own distinct types of roots, trunks, and branches with their life-sustaining circulatory and nervous system. All living forms, only man's body with its unique cerebral spinal centers has the potential of expressing fully God's cosmic consciousness. The sacred Ashvatha tree, the pipal or holy fig tree associated with worship of the divine, therefore symbolizes the human body, supreme among all other forms of life. See also chapter 15, verses 1 through 4. Man's physical astral causal body is like an upturned tree, with roots in the hair and brain, and in astral rays from the thousand-petaled lotus, and in causal thought emanations which are nourished by cosmic consciousness. The trunk of the tree of life in man is the physical astral causal spine. The branches of this tree are the physical nervous system, the astral nadis, channel or rays of life force, and thought emanations from the magnetic causal body. The hair, cranial nerves, medulla, cerebral astral rays, and the causal thought emanations are antennae that draw from the ethereal force and cosmic consciousness. Thus is man nourished not only by physical food, but by God's cosmic energy and his underlying cosmic consciousness. Narada is a preceptor of the deities of the astral world, and he also has taken part in many dramas and affairs of men on earth. As a rishi, he is one who is, quote, a seer of mantra, unquote, the way in which creation evolves from the vibration of Om, the methods by which the mind may be saved from the influence of the enslaving vibratory delusions of the cosmic dream. These yoga techniques unite the body dream with the dreamless blessedness of spirit. Hence, the Devarishi Narada, who has helped many earthly and astral souls to God realization, is a glorious divine manifestation of the Creator Lord. The name Chitraratha means literally, quote, having a bright chariot, unquote, for which reason it is sometimes used in reference to the sun. The significance of Chitraratha, the demigod, is he whose heart is concentrated on the chariot of infinite perception, the sun of the spiritual eye. Such a one earns the acclamation of the Lord. Among Siddhas, perfected beings, the divine spirit declares itself as manifested in the life of Kapila Muni. A Muni is the highest tradition, quote, united with the One, unquote, by withdrawal of the mind at will from objects of the senses and from attraction to them. Kapila is also the inspired author of the Sankhya philosophy. Verse 27. Not sure how much longer there is in this chapter here. Let's see. Alright, so verse 27, on page 891. Ah. 891. Okay, let me close this. All right, I'm going to read this next verse and take a quick break. Verse 27, quote, among stallions know me to be the nectar-born, whatever that word is, among elephants, Indra's white elephant, Airavata, and among men, the emperor, unquote. Traditionally, this very long, unpronounceable word, is the wondrous king of horses that arose out of the legendary churning of the ocean by the gods and demons who were seeking to recover the lost nectar of immortality. It is also a name given to one of the horses of the god of the sun. This next subsection is called Allegory of the Horse, carrying mind to spirit on the current of life force. Allegorically, in the Hindu scriptures, the symbol of the horse is often used to represent a force that carries with it another force, as the horse supports its rider. The life current flowing downward from the brain carries the mind to the senses and to identity with the physical body and the domain of entangling matter. By a technique such as Kriya Yoga, the life current is reversed to flow upward to the centers of spiritual perception in the brain, carrying the mind from the senses to the soul and spirit. In this Gita verse, this uplifting life current is called Uchai Shravas, and there you go, that's the best I'm going to get. The Uchais, quote, upwards from high above, unquote, and Shravas, quote, a rushing stream, unquote, also, quote, sounding, unquote, the currents of life force being differentiated vibrations of the creative vibratory light of sound, Om. The uplifting current is spoken of as being born of nectar because its source is in the bliss of spirit, the divine nectar of immortality, Amrita. In the cerebral thousand-petaled lotus, this reservoir of life and consciousness with its thousand petals or rays of current enlivens the whole body through the subdynamos of the cerebral spinal centers and through the two-edged positive-negative current in the medulla, the 16-petaled current in the cervical, the 12-petaled current in the dorsal, and the 10-petaled current in the lumbar, the 6-petaled current in the sacral center, and the four-petaled current in the coccygeal center. When the yogi withdraws the life force from the material objects, sensory organs, and sensory motor nerves and takes the concentrated life upward through the spinal passageway of kundalini, coiled energy, in the coccyx, he perceives as he ascends the various spinal centers with their petaled light rays and sound of life energy. When the yogi's consciousness reaches the medulla and to the spiritual eye at the point between the eyebrows, he finds the doorway into the star lotus of a thousand innumerable rays. He perceives the omnipresent light of God spreading over the sphere of eternity in his body as a minuscule emanation of this light. In deepest ecstasy, the yogi perceives the cosmic light change into vibrationless, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss of spirit. It is this vibrationless cosmic consciousness that has become the one vibrating cosmic light. This light, projecting away from God, becomes shadowed with delusion, producing the cosmic motion pictures of dream images, including the body of man. God thus manifests in all currents in the body which emanate from the cerebral sun, or star lotus of light, but his supreme manifestation among all these bodily forces is the redeeming uplifting current, or Uchai Shravas, the upward soaring, quote, stallion of the sun, unquote, of the spiritual eye and cosmic consciousness that carries the yogi to spirit. The elephant is a symbol of wisdom. Significantly, Airavata is referring to the guardian or supporter, quote, of the east quarter, unquote, in man's body, the east, quote unquote, or center of wisdom in the forehead. The word Indra implies one who is a conqueror of the senses, Indriya. Wisdom is the vehicle of the yogi who has conquered his senses. God is indeed prominently manifest in the colossal wisdom of the sense conqueror. God's almightiness is obviously more reflected in powerful leaders than in weak men, but there is further significance in the Lord's declaring himself in emperors among men. When a man's ego is identified with his senses, he is spoken of as a slave. But when through yoga he ascends the throne of superconscious soul bliss, he is a supreme ruler of his bodily kingdom. In the kingly yogi, God is more manifest than in a sense slave. All right, fine, I'll read the next one too. Verse 28, quote, among weapons, I am the thunderbolt of both. Okay, there's this line going through my screen, so I can't see the punctuation. Among weapons, I am the thunderbolt. Of bovines, I am Kumadhuk, the celestial cow that fulfills all desires. I am Kandrapa, the personified creative consciousness, the cause of childbirths, and I am Vasuki among serpents, unquote. And the commentary elucidates on this symbolically in this verse the tremendously powerful quote unquote thunderbolt with its display of light and sound is the cosmic creative vibration. God is often mentioned in the scriptures as speaking through thunder. The Lord's first expression in matter is this quote unquote word or cosmic vibration. It is this cosmic thunder that is both the creator and destroyer, quote unquote weapon, of delusive matter, as cosmic energy in the macrocosm of the universe, and as prana in the microcosm of the human body. Mastery of this formidable power is the yogi's best weapon against delusion. Kamadhuk, the desiring, fulfilling celestial milch cow, was cited in chapter 3, verse 10 as symbolic of divine wisdom, the nourishment of which satisfies all hungers of physical, mental, and spiritual longings. Christ spoke similarly of this principle when he said, quote, whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. It shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life, unquote. And the subsection here is called yogic significance of, quote, cow of plenty, unquote. The, quote, cow of plenty, unquote, has also another significance in yoga. When a yogi in the exalted states of meditation disconnects his life force from the senses and unites his mind to the soul, he perceives a corresponding reaction in his physical body as a thrill of ecstasy. The advanced yogis know how, by a certain technique called Kachari Mudra, which should be practiced only according to the instructions of one's guru, to unite the masculine positive current in the tongue with the feminine negative current in the uvula, the samadhi. So, what this is you basically have to learn how to pull your tongue all the way back into your throat and all the way up to touch the bottom of your brain, basically. That's what they're talking about. You could see a video of somebody like pulling their tongue back and doing that. Like, that's something. But I'm sure that takes a long time to get to that point. Anyways, continuing. In samadhi meditation, the conjunction of these currents produces a thrill of divine joy and also a secretion of nectar into the mouth. Nourished by this nectar, the yogi can keep his body immobile indefinitely in the state of ecstasy. Many yogis, including the 20th century Garib Bala, have remained for long periods, even years, without food. This highly charged nectar is, quote, the milk, unquote, from the fabulous, quote, cow of plenty, unquote, the Kamadhuk, one of the treasures that came out of the, quote, churning of the ocean, unquote, of cosmic consciousness in the highest spiritual center in the cerebrum. Kandarpa is another name for Kamadeva, quote, desire, the god of love, unquote. He is popularly compared to the Greek god Eros and the Roman Cupid. In the original Vedic concept of Kama, however, he represents the first awakening desire of the one spirit to become many. Kandarpa is God's all-creative cosmic consciousness, the creator-dreamer of all cosmic dreams and their object and beings. Through this consciousness, God created the symbolic, quote, Adam and Eve, unquote, by an act of special creation, individualizations of his dream consciousness. Then, through his law of evolution, he empowered these beings to procreate their own species. It is God's Kandarpa, or all creative consciousness, manifesting through parents, that is responsible for the begetting of children. The coiled, creative life force at the base of the astral spine, Kundalini, has always been symbolized as a serpent. When this creative force is, quote unquote, asleep, in delusion, it flows down and outwards and feeds all the senses. Uncontrolled, its stinging venom causes insatiable lusts. But when the pure Kundalini force is awakened, quote unquote, by the yogi, it rises to the brain and is transformed into the bliss of spirit. This uplifting, serpentine current is Vasuki, the supreme force for human liberation. Now, this is a fascinating section of this book. Because yet again, I can't help but think of the story of Moses in the wilderness, after they quote unquote escaped Egypt and all that other stuff. And there's that section where he has to put a rod of serpents in the desert because the Israelites are quote unquote being bitten by serpents, and this quote unquote rod of serpents, Kundalini, with the Vasuki, serpentine current of both male and female going up on either side, interchanging places. Good Lord. Oh man, yeah, it's funny because I'm glad that I'm reading this out loud with you guys because I definitely came to that conclusion a long time ago when I first came up, read this, but I'm just like rehashing it again here. And having actually read some of this stuff recently, I'm definitely going to be bringing this up in some more edited versions because this is very, some of the ways that he is expressing these things are, if you really, I'm definitely going to go back and take a good close look, but I guarantee you it's so similar in the way that these are probably supposed to be meant to be, taken by the reader or the one who understands the esoteric thing behind it. Fascinating. Anyways, continuing, the analogy can be made that God is manifested in the downwardly flowing creative power, Kandarpa, which through sex is responsible for the creation of children, and he is also in the uplifting current, Vasuki, which begets the offspring of divine realization. All right, so we're an hour and 30 minutes here, verse 29. I'm going to go ahead and put up the break sign. And I'll leave you guys for about 5 minutes, maybe a little longer. Depends. And for some strange reason, back. Let me just make sure that all the sound I can hear is fine. Yep, okay. And back to the reading. Oops. There we go. Verse 29, quote, I am Ananta, quote, the Eternal One. Among the Naga serpents, I am Varuna, god of the ocean. Among the water creatures, I am Aryama. Among Pitris, ancestral parents, I am Yama, god of death among all controllers, unquote. Ananta, the commentary continues, Ananta, the eternal king of serpents, is symbolic of cosmic delusion, the lord of all delusive forces that bemoves creation. In this and previous verse, two supreme quote-unquote serpents are mentioned, and thus implying a categorical distinction between Vasuki and Ananta. Vasuki is referred to in stanza 28 as a sarpa, having a serpentine crawling motion that is the coiled or circular motion of the kundalini force in the microcosm of the human being. Ananta, quote, eternal or infinite, unquote, is a macrocosmic or universal principle. It is another name for Shesha, the thousand-headed serpent that couches and canopies the sleeping preserver Vishnu during the states of dissolution between cycles of creation. Thus the name Shesha, quote, that which remains, unquote, the preserved potentialities of creation that is in suspended state await new expression in the next creative cycle. That's very quantum physics. During an active creation, Shesha or Ananta is represented as supporting all spheres of manifestation. This is none else than cosmic delusion, Maha Prakriti, the sole power by which universes and beings are formed from the one consciousness of spirit. Prakriti is eternal, Ananta, in active and quiescent states throughout the endlessly revolving kalpas, or cycles of creation, preservation, and dissolution. Varuna, quote, all-encompassing, unquote, is the, quote, deity of the ocean, unquote, the oceanic cosmic consciousness of God. In the Vedas, Varuna is extolled as excellent and preeminent above all other deities, the primal maker and upholder of the universe. Therefore, he is the lord of all other, quote, water creatures, unquote, all primal creative forces or elements arising out of the ocean of cosmic consciousness. Even as an ocean is the force and essence of all of its waves, so all manifested things issue from the enveloping cosmic consciousness. Aryama and Aditya, the chief of the Pitris ancestors, is the supreme creative light of the astral world, the parents of all parents. As the head of the dynasty is the source of all of his clan, so God and his consort, cosmic nature, are the real parents of all beings. In the world of matter, again, this is also very Gnostic. In the world of matter, Adam and Eve are the atom-bodied ancestors of humanity. In the astral world, God and his consort Maha Prakriti produce Aryama, light, the supreme cosmic beam that is the primal parent of astral forms. The advanced yogi sees the physical universe and its original human parents as a material atomic dream of God, behind which is the astral lifetronic dream universe with God's finer Aryama light as the creator, quote, ancestral parent, unquote, of all astral forms and beings. Yama, quote, the god of death, unquote, is represented as a deity who leads the astrally embodied souls of men after death into one of the darker or brighter regions of the astral world, according to each individual's karmic merit. And interestingly enough, Yam, not Yama, but Yam, or Yam, in the ancient, not Israelite, but Canaanite Phoenician religion, is also the god of death and also governs the oceans. So, how very interesting. Anyways, continuing, the word yama means quote-unquote control, and specifically self-control, the power to guide, restrain, and govern oneself. Among all forms of self-control, the quote-unquote controllers, the paramount force is that associated with control over life, over the life principle. Through Yama, the god of death, there is enforced control or restraint of life as it is forcibly withdrawn from the body at death. Wow, that's crazy. So also in the pantheonic story of Baal versus Yam, this is probably the exact same actual esoteric meaning behind that whole story. Interesting. Definitely going to be bringing that back up again. Continuing, the yogi who attains full self mastery, however, has conscious control over life and death. He can take his consciousness and life force at will in and out of these mysterious portals as a free traveler in yamas after death regions, and also in the boundless domain of spirit beyond vibratory taint, where no specters of death and compromising change may enter. I need to go let my cat out real quick. Sorry. All right, we're back. He can take his consciousness, life force at will. Oh, yeah, okay, yes. So, verse 30, quote, among the Daityas, demons and giants, I am Prahlada. Among the measurers, I am time. Among the animals, I am the king of beasts, the lion. And among birds, I am Garuda, lord of the skies, vehicle of Vishnu, unquote. That's definitely going to come back in our upcoming videos. The Daityas are mythologically a class of demons and giants who warred against the gods. Funny how they have the same story in the Bible and in Greek mythology. They are continuing. They are the offering of Diti, the antithesis or polar opposite of Aditi, mother of the Adityas, the shining gods. As the Adityas are the divine uplifting creative forces, the Daityas are the dual or opposing matter bent forces. The Daitya, Prahlada, however, from early childhood shunned all evil ways and became God minded. His name signifies one who is full of the divine blessedness, one who, quote, rejoices, unquote, in divine joy. Prahlada is revered as the exemplary devotee. He endured the wrath and persecution of his father and remained unflinching in his devotion. In India, children are exhorted by their parents to become saintly like Prahlada. When the yogi reverses the delusion-bound forces in his body, turning them Godward, he becomes Prahlada, and like that Holy One attains union with God. Time and its corollary space, as observed in the world of relativity, are, quote, man-made, unquote, categories, suggested by nature's power of illusion and applied to a series of changes happening in God. And this is a little poem of some sort, quote, in the tides of life an action storm, a fluctuant wave, a shuttle-free birth and the grave, an eternal sea, a weaving flowing, life all glowing, thus at times humming loom, 'tis my hand prepares the garment of life which the deity wears, unquote. And back to the commentary. God is the eternal consciousness, unchanging and indivisible, in which the illusions of time, i.e., change, and space, i.e., division, present an infinite variety of forms interacting in a progressive mode of past, present, and future. When a dreamer travels around the world in his dream, he does so not in space and time, but in his consciousness only. Similarly, the cosmic dream is occurring neither in vast space nor in a series of past, present, and future time, but the eternal now of God's dream consciousness. Because Jesus was attuned to this eternal consciousness, he could say, quote, before Abraham was, I am, unquote. He knew his everlastingness was in no manner interrupted by the illusory changes called birth, existence, and death. And just to break off for a second, it is true that all of what we call existence is only essentially gained from our five senses in the way that our brain, basically deals with that. Other than that, like, what is reality, right? Continuing, God has no respect for, quote, history, unquote, man's limited and erroneous measuring conceptions of time and space, for he can produce any past being, object, or event instantaneously in his ever-present dream consciousness. Likewise, in a second, he can dissolve this world and its beings or entire cosmos and then bring them back at will, just as they were. All he has to do is stop dreaming this world and it ceases to be. or he can dream it back again by materializing it in his consciousness. These capricious categories of time and space are offshoots of the cosmic dreamer's fancy. By divine imaginings, dream pictures of universes can be made to appear and disappear in the tiniest space and minutest moment in the single frozen thought of the cosmic dreamer. Devotees who realize the dream nature of this cosmos and the dreaming power of God no longer rely on the misleading illusions of nature's measurers, the conclusions from which makes creation seem often harsh and unjust. They look to the eternal consciousness, the soul time, SOLE, that knows no distress of change, immutable time, referred to in chapter 10, verse 33. The proverbial king of beasts is the powerful lion, here symbolizing that omnipotent God is the lord of all beasts, or material-bodied beings, both animals and man. The human being, which alone in the animal kingdom possesses the full potential of divinity, has been commissioned by God to be the supreme ruler over all forms of matter. Garuda, the lustrous king of birds, is the divine mythological vehicle of Vishnu, famed as, quote, enemy and destroyer of serpents, unquote, delusion. Partially enveloped devotees, like birds, can fly into the free skies of samadhi, but must again return to the bodily nest that is vulnerable to serpentine predators, the forces of delusion. But a liberated soul soars away from delusion forever and becomes one with God. He is compared in this stanza to the lustrous, golden-bodied Garuda, quote, Lord of the skies, unquote, the devourer of delusion. Verse 31. Quote, among purifiers I am the breeze, among wielders of weapons I am Rama, among aquatic creatures I am Makara, vehicle of the god of the ocean, among streams I am Jahnavi, the Ganges, unquote. And the commentary elucidates, the wind or air, pavana, is the breath of life through which God sustains vegetation, animals, and man. This purifying, cleansing, purging power is manifested in all wind currents active throughout the universe, but is preeminent in the subtle vital air, the quote, unquote, breeze or gentle wind, that is life-giving prana. When by Kriya Yoga Pranayama, the established yogi distills the life currents out of the oxygen in the human breath and uses this pure prana to recharge his body, he unites his life with cosmic life. Breath mastery through pranayama, or life force control, is not only the best means of drawing on cosmic energy to sustain life in the physical body, but also the highest method for attaining liberation. Life control produces control of the breath, the cord that ties the soul to the body, and breathlessness in the samadhi state produces God consciousness. Rama, revered as an avatar, an incarnation of Vishnu, was a great and noble king of ancient India. It is said that throughout his reign no death or disease touched his kingdom. Of great righteousness, he possessed divine weapons by which he was conqueror of all evil enemies. Among wielders of weapons, the greatest, as was Rama, is the vanquisher of one's inner enemies of delusion. Using the bow of calmness with its taut bowstring of straight spine in meditation, fitted with unerring arrows of self-control and concentration. Makara is a mythical sea creature, the vehicle of Varuna, quote, god of the ocean, unquote. Makara is sometimes referred to as a shark, the undisputed mightiest of fishes. This mythical creature is the emblem on the standard of Kamadeva, quote, desire, unquote, showing desire's deference to his higher power. The spiritual significance is that the presence of God, inherent in man's consciousness, becomes active in the ocean of samadhi consciousness as the divine predator devouring all little fishes, quote-unquote, of the devotee's earthly desires. The Ganges is revered as the holiest of rivers, blessed by God through the vibrations of the many liberated saints who have bathed in her waters and meditated on her banks. Symbolically, the Ganges represents the ever-flowing intuitive wisdom in the liberated yogi. It also represents the taintless Sushumna life current, which flows through the astral spine from the coccyx to the thousand-petaled lotus in the brain. The life force and soul perception of the yogi is carried on this river of life, away from body and material entanglements to the shores of blessedness and spirit. Pardon me while I drink. Verse 32, quote, all manifestations, O Arjuna, I am the beginning, middle, and end. Among all branches of knowledge, I am the wisdom of the self. For debaters, I am discriminative logic, which I think is Vada. I can't see because of the line. Yeah, vada. Even as the Lord is the eternal. Oh, let me make sure I didn't displace that. Yeah, okay. Even as the Lord is the eternal self in the transitory mortal forms of beings, bearing sole responsibility for their comings and goings, so does he create, uphold, and call back to himself all objectified dream images of his consciousness. Human knowledge, no matter how proliferate, will always be limited without the wisdom, intuitive perception of the soul, the singular revealer of the Creator. Without the inherent presence of God, there would be no powers of cognition, reason, and disputation. In logic and in dialectics, he has given the potentiality to conceive the fickleness and unreality of the cosmic dream and to infer the reality of the cosmic dreamer. On man alone in all creation has God bestowed the power of abstract reasoning. Except by the right exercise of reason, no man under cosmic delusion would ever have come out from it, for he would not have known he was in it. Good point. Verse 33, quote, among all letters, I am the letter A. Of all compounds, I am the Devandva connective element. I am the immutable time, and I am the omnipresent creator, the all-pervading dispenser of destiny, whose face is turned on all sides, unquote. And the commentary elucidates, letters are divided into vowels and consonants. No consonants can be pronounced without the aid of a vowel. The letter A, in general, in nearly all languages, is the first among vowels, and Sanskrit is also the component of every consonant, which allows for the intonation of that letter, ka, ta, ba, and so forth. A, as the first letter of the primordial syllable Om, whose cosmic sound is the mother of all sounds, and therefore all languages. Om is the conglomerate sound of the creative, preservative, and dissolving vibrations of nature, represented respectively by its letters A, Akara, U, Ukara, and M, Makara. It is thus the word of God that was with him from the beginning, his symbol in creation. The Lord, in this Gita verse, declares himself preeminently in the letter A, creation, for he is the origin, the infinite source of being, the power that sends forth the modes of nature. Quote, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty. Unquote. The Hindu scriptures deal at length with the importance of chanting this sacred word, Om, and of listening in deep meditation to the actual sound of this holy vibration, declaring God's presence in creation. In Sanskrit grammar, Devandva refers to compounds of words, aggregate compounds, in which the words, though conjoined, do not change their character and construction or meaning. The concomitant analogy of God's manifestation as the Devandva is that his consciousness is the copulative element that holds together in intelligent play and interplay all beings and objects. Cosmic delusion in the ordinary man suppresses his perception of the ubiquitous infinite. He sees only the cosmic dream without the presence of the cosmic dreamer. The yogi, however, beholds the cosmic dreamer and his cosmic dream as one. By rising above the mortal state, he sees God as the conjoining power, Devandva, among all compounds, Samasa, in the cosmic dream. He perceives God's subjective consciousness and his objective dream as held together by his conjoining cognitive dream consciousness. A man requires self-awareness to be conscious of himself and of his dreams, so God cognizes his cosmic dreams through his ever-conscious self-awareness, the essential faculty by which his dreamless being and his cosmic dream exist together, in complete harmony, as one twig may support two flowers, so the stem of self-awareness, the unifying Devandva, or God's cognitive power, holds together the blossom of his absolute nature and the blossom of his diversified cosmic dream. God is immutable time, the eternal consciousness. In the Atharva Veda, God is personified as time and hailed as, quote, the Father, unquote, creator of all the worlds, and also as their, quote, unquote, son, their existence. Time, Kala, is the idea of change in the eternal immutable, a gossamer illusion in which all illusions dance. Stanza 30 of this chapter referred to man's conception of time, imposed on him by nature as one of its illusory measurers. This present verse refers to God's everlasting consciousness, the soul time, S-O-L-E, time, which is the eternal receptacle of all his ever-changing illusory dreams of creation. This subsection is called predestination and man's free will. A subtle principle is cited in the esoteric description of God as the omnipresent creator, the dispenser or bestower of destiny, who faces in all directions. A dreamer is the creator and sustainer of the destiny, both good and bad, of the images in his dream. Similarly, in the cosmic dream, the divine dreamer is the creator and sustainer of all beings and the dispenser of their destiny through their good and bad karma. In this sense, God predetermines to a great extent the happenings in his cosmic dream and the parts to be played therein by his dream actors. This doesn't mean, however, that man's fate is wholly predestined by an authoritarian deity. God is the maker of destiny, but he has given man the power to react upon destiny. Each human being receives from God the gift of free choice by which he can make changes in himself and his world environment. This very power of free will is an expression of the image of God in man, the image in which man is made, the soul or individualized consciousness of God. Therefore, all happenings are determined by a conjunctive effort between God and the macrocosmic creator, and God, the microcosmic creator, through individualized expression in man. No individual is spared his share of the responsibility for any evils or seeming injustices. If one disdains his lot, he may exercise the God power within him to operate those laws of nature that can change those circumstances. If he tires in the alternating entertainments and harassments of dualities, he can exert his God power to awaken himself from this cosmic dreaming. The non-use or misuse of free will is man's own choice to remain in the dream and to be subjected to the laws that rule the realm of manifestation. Visvato Mukha, quote, omnipresent, facing all sides, unquote, has also a further meaning, quote, an omnipresent aperture or opening, unquote, God's eternal presence. His all-encompassing consciousness is the quote-unquote doorway through which his created beings go back and forth between the physical plane and the astral world, as his consciousness enacts on them the illusory changes called birth and death. Through good and bad karma, the fruits of man's actions dispensed by God according to his just law of compensation, the recurrent cycles of birth, existence, and death of all beings are continuously occurring in the consciousness of God. Thus, he, the sustainer and bestower of all happenings. Verse 34, quote, I am dissolving death, and I am birth, the origin of all that will be. Among feminine manifestation qualities of Prakriti, I am fame, success, and the illumining power of speech, memory, discriminative intelligence, the grasping faculty of intuition, and the steadfastness of divine forbearance, unquote. And the commentary continues. This verse refers to God's consciousness active in the three gunas of nature: tamas, disillusion; rajas, creation; and sattva, preservation, the nurturing, motherly, or feminine quality. The rajas and sattva manifestations both undergo continuous change as a result of tamas. Death or dissolution necessitates the creation and preservation of new forms for the continuity of cosmic nature with her many beings and objects. God's consciousness as transforming death, the dissolver, changes the forms and states of all subjective and objective creations and transfers them from one place to another in his physical astral causal cosmos. God, who is unsubject to the illusory change of death that infects all the appearances in his cosmic dream, expresses his transforming power of death through the tamasic quality of his cosmic delusion nature. As whatever exists in the realm of nature is subject to dissolution in God's consciousness, so everything yet to come into manifestation will have birth from its origin in God's consciousness. His all-creative power is carried on by the rajasic activating quality in nature. The preservative aspect of God, the activities of which are carried on is carried on by the sattvic qualities of delusive nature, is referred to in this verse as having 7 quote-unquote feminine attributes. Nature being God's consort, the cosmic mother, the Shakti, or vibratory power of spirit. These 7 quote-unquote daughters of God and cosmic nature bestow their qualities on all objects and beings. Man has the ability to negate or enhance their beneficial effects in life. So, let's go through them. Number 1, fame or glory is the subtle power of expression, the declaration that makes something known, such as the glory in a flower or the subtle character of a man's desire that nurtures either his good or ill repute. Number 2, success or prosperity is the auspicious power that promotes and sustains well-being in all forms of success. Number 3, speech is a cardinal attribute in nature's realm of cosmic delusion, deriving from the sound of the cosmic vibration with its gunas of creation, preservation, and destruction. All nature possesses this attribute of vibratory expression, evidenced in everything from the hum of atoms to the song of birds and utterances of beasts, and above all, the articulation of man. Through vibratory sound, all nature communes in its highest expression. Speech being I don't know, vach or vaksh, is the repository of all knowledge, that vibratory intelligence through which the Vedas were divinely revealed to the rishis, who in turn, through their own voice, convey this illumination to others. It is incumbent on man, similarly, to use his God-given powerful instrument of speech to do only good and to spread enlightenment. Number 4, smriti is memory. So, number 4 is memory, is the power of continuity of consciousness, nature's way of connecting the past with the present. The vibratory consciousness is a seed, though not self-conscious, quote unquote, remembers how to grow a plant or a mighty tree from its evolutionary record or quote unquote memory. Man is able to recall past experiences, all of which are recorded in his brain, and thereby proliferate his growth and capabilities. The divine man can recall not only the accumulated experiences of his present life, but of his past incarnations as well, the legacy of the continuity of his consciousness, and thereby draw upon a vast storehouse of knowledge and achievements. Number 5, intelligence, meda, is a attribute of nature, is the discriminative or manifested intelligence of the supreme intelligence, spirit. It is what maintains order and harmony in the universe and in man. Through the use of his mental power of discriminative intelligence, the deluded, ignorant man attains wisdom. Number 6, the grasping power of intuition is the fixity of the mind, driti, in the soul perception, the soul's direct realization or connection with truth or reality. Even the sleeping consciousness in the stone and the semi-awake consciousness in the animal never loses its connection with its true nature. Man, being in whom discrimination awakens, begins in lesser and greater degree to draw on his innate intuition, the underlying source of all his mental powers. The fully awakened divine man, anchored in his true self, becomes all-knowing through the omniscience of pure soul intuition. And number 7, forbearance. Kshama is the calm, patient stability in nature and man, the power that resists the disturbing fluctuations of nature's dualities. It is the harbor of peace and the anchor of steadfastness sought by all beings. This attribute in cosmic delusion is a reflection of the eternal calm, the everlasting patience, the uncreate spirit. There is also a deeper significance in this verse. Understood by the yogi, these glorious attributes of the cosmic mother displayed throughout the universe may be consciously tapped in deep meditation. As the yogi's life and consciousness ascend through the subtle cerebral spinal centers, awakening or unlocking their mysteries, the effulgence of these attributes illumine his whole being and bestow on him their grandest treasures according to his heart's desire. And another drink real quick. Verse 35, among samas, which are hymns, I am Brihat Saman. Among poetic meters, I am Gayatri. Among the months, I am Maga Sirsha, an auspicious winter month. Among season, I am the Kusumakara, the flower bearer, spring, unquote. Of course, you'd be spring. Continuing the commentary, the sacred Vedic hymns of special formulas of meter and syllabication are cited in their potent vibratory power. The Saman promotes wisdom, the Gayatri deals with the salvation of man. Brihat Saman and Gayatri are respectively referred to two classes of sacred verses, each with its own distinct formula, and they are also the names of two chief hymns representative of these categories. In India, the month of Magara Sirsha, spanning a portion of November and December, is considered the most auspicious and healthiest period of the year. The coolness of this winter month destroys or inactivates many germs and bacteria that flourishes in the preceding heat of summer and humidity of monsoon. In the blossoming spring, God decorates his consort, nature, with matchless ornaments of many-hued blossoms as she busily tends to the rebirth and nurturing of her vast progeny. Metaphorically, Kusamakara, quote, abounding with the flowers, unquote, refers to the time of spiritual fulfillment. The novitiate yogi struggles with prenatal instincts and mental restlessness throughout years of vigorous meditation. As a result of devoted persistence, he finally beholds wondrous flowers of wisdom. The astral lotuses blooming in the finer regions of the subtle spinal centers in his spine and brain open before him, bathing him in their fragrance of many realizations. Within this blossoming garden, the yogi's meditative efforts confront and in time remove all vestiges of prenatal and postnatal karma and of the ego and its forces of delusion. He ascends the divine pathway that opens through the spinal centers to the summit of cosmic consciousness, in the uppermost part of the brain, and thence to a liberation in spirit. This is symbolically represented in the reference to the auspicious month Marga, Marga, quote, divine path to, unquote, and Sirsha, literally, quote, the head or topmost part, unquote, the supreme center of cosmic consciousness in the brain, the gateway to liberation, the, quote, crowning pinnacle, unquote, of the yogi's strivings. Verse 36. I am the gambling of the practicers of fraud. I am the radiance of the radiance. I am victory and the striving power. I am the quality of sattva among the good. Unquote. As God passes through his consciousness, his film of cosmic delusion, shadowed with the triple qualities of tamas, rajas, and sattva, evil, activating, and good pictures are produced from his one being. He cannot therefore wholly disassociate himself even from the evil or dark concepts of the drama. Indeed, it is his cosmic Maya, the ultimate deceiver, that deranges reason in those who court the dark tamasic quality. They ignorantly gamble their happiness and well-being on chances of quick and easy self-gratification. Yep. Absolutely. The divine trickster, however, also teaches his acolytes how to turn the tables on his cosmic delusion by non-attachment, right activity, practice of yoga, and ecstatic union with him. The undiluted reality, thus, through God's activating qualities, rajas, radiant pictures of life are produced, depicting vitally energetic beings valiantly and nobly struggling and winning victories. At last, in the conqueror, God displays himself as sattva, goodness and purity. In the devotee, the triple nature of God's cosmic delusion similarly enacts its drama. In the beginning, with no evident certainty of gain, except the conviction of faith and devotion, the seeker boldly gambles his efforts against the deceptive obstacles of delusion. With the fiery energies and self-control of rajas, he practices penance, renunciation, strict discipline, and subjugation of restless thoughts by meditation on God. In time, he is gratifyingly astonished at the occasional glimpses of God playing hide-and-seek with him. When the yogi can hold the full realization of God in his concentration for even a little while, his mind and body become thrilled with a radiating energy that may even cause the hairs of his body to stand on end. And yes, it absolutely does cause the hair on your body to stand on end, considering prana is a very cold energy. Continuing, with persistence and unabated zeal, with the activating inner divine grace, the yogi's body, consciousness, breath, and mind dissolve into one perception of divine love, the partial union of his soul with God. The inner divine radiance imbues his whole body, mind, and soul with unexcelled bliss. Even the gross body becomes subtly aglow with the divine astral halo. The still eyes glisten with unseen tears of blessedness. He worships the cosmic beloved spirit with the all-embracing adoration of his soul until his soul becomes the blessedness of spirit. In the ultimate samadhi state, the yogi's consciousness, without losing its self-awareness, expands into the omnipresent consciousness of God. The devotee realizes that throughout all these states, God was the ever-present reality within the delusive forces, the valiant efforts to conquer them, and the temporary and ultimate victories, the supreme good, the ultimate radiance within all delusive dream enactments. Verse 37. Quote, among the Vrishnis, I am Vasudeva, Krishna. Among the Pandavas, I am Dhananjaya, Arjuna. Among the Munis, saints, I am Vyasa. Among the sages, I am the savant Ushanas, unquote. And the commentary elucidates, from this state of God union, Bhagavan Krishna could proclaim in an impersonal way that spirit whom he realized as the whole of his being was incarnated in the Vrishni dynasty as Krishna, known as Vasudeva, the Lord as creator, preserver, and destroyer. Similarly, among those in the wise Pandava dynasty, the Lord is eminent in the ideal disciple Arjuna, Dhananjaya, quote, winner of wealth, unquote. He who attains the divine treasure by conquering desires and appetites, pain, pleasure, birth, and death. Still impersonally, Krishna as spirit declares himself in his ideal devotee Vyasa, the writer of the Bhagavad Gita, who received his revelation humbly and impersonally and then recorded it in the form of this divine discourse. Vyasa is proclaimed foremost among the munis, saints locked in ecstatic communion with God when he is in the samadhi, actionless state. In tune with cosmic consciousness, Vyasa perceived what Bhagavan Krishna revealed to Arjuna. When Vyasa was in the divinely active state, as during the writing of the Bhagavad Gita, he was referred to as a rishi, one who performs spiritual activities with no loss of the supreme divine contact. God extols also the ancient poet and sage Ushanas, who had great powers, including that of resurrecting the dead. Verse 38, quote, I am the road of the discipliners. I am the art of those who seek victory. I am also the silence of all hidden things and the wisdom of all knowers, unquote. And the commentary continues, the rod is God's law of cause and effect, karma, the ultimate discipliner. The errant man may escape the punishment of man-made laws, but karmic justice is inexorable, appeasable only by right actions which earn rewards of merit and ultimate pardon. The Bible also refers to the law of karma as, quote, the rod, unquote. Quote, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, unquote. The karmic principle is a source of comfort to those who understand its discipline and rewards as pointing the way to true happiness and liberation. Job referred to, quote, the rod of God, unquote, when he lamented that oftentimes the righteous suffer while the wicked have great material gain and pleasure. Quote, their houses are safe from fear, neither is the rod of God upon them, unquote. But then he knowingly concludes, quote, how oft is the candle of the wicked put out? How oft cometh their destruction upon them? God distributeth sorrows in his anger, unquote. The karmic law dispenses justice. The wicked for a time may enjoy rewards of past good karma, but present evil will surely exact its toll. God's all-conquering power is manifested in right actions and in noble motives and goals. These are the divine science and art through which his rewarding karmic law grants victory to the valiant. God is the uncreate silence, hidden in all forces and objects of cosmic nature. The creatures of nature see only the gross expressions of that Maya displays, not the hidden mystery that makes them seem so real and vital. God's silent presence within all phenomena of the cosmic dream is his best kept secret, discoverable by no limited human mind. It is written, he who knows, quote, it is written, quote, he who knows, he knows, not else knows, unquote. Only through divine realization does one know God and truth, and knows that he knows. God is the wisdom, the perceiving, and the perception of that knower. And again, this is the entire basis of what gnosis is about in Gnosticism. As applied to yoga, danda, a rod, staff, trunk, unquote, of the tree of life, represents the spine in which the yogi performs self-discipline to spiritualize his consciousness. This verse, therefore, commends pranayama, the Kriya Yoga technique of life control, as the most effective mode of disciplining the wayward senses, the restless mind, and the misguided will, that they be turned toward God. Through this quote-unquote art or practice of scientific yoga, the yogi becomes victorious. When his body consciousness and thoughts are stilled, he finds within him, in that quote-unquote silence, the unimaginable bliss of God. He becomes a true knower, one with the eternal wisdom. Verse 39, quote, I am, furthermore, whatsoever constitutes the reproductive seed of all beings. There is nothing, O Arjuna, moving or motionless, that can abide without me, unquote. The Lord began the categorical enumeration of his manifestations in chapter 10, verse 20, with the declaration that he is the origin, existence, and finality of all creatures. He now concludes his recounting with the statement that it is he also who is the seed within all beings, by which he perpetuates his creation through nature's power of reproduction in all of its various forms. Everything that moves, that is, expresses the sattva perceptive and or rajas active attributes of God, from animate creatures to the motion of wind, fire, planets, all forces in cosmic nature, and all that is stationary, inert gross matter, the product of tamas, obstructive quality, owe to their being solely to the omnipresent consciousness of God and the omnipotence of his divine will. There are but parts of one stupendous whole, whose body nature is, and God the soul. Another small little poem from somewhere. I'm not going to click on the thing, but verse 20, a scorcher of foes, Arjuna, limitless are the okay, sorry. Verse 20. Oh, sorry, verse 40. I'm tired. I think I'm going to have to end this off after this. Verse 40. I will be back tomorrow for hopefully a much, much longer reading. So verse 40, quote, O scorcher of foes, Arjuna, limitless are the manifestations of my divine attributes. My concise declaration is a mere intimation of my proliferating glorious powers, unquote. Very short commentary here. Countless are the dream dramas enacted in the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the causal, astral, and physical universes, and in the experiences of their dream actors, all of which are manifestations of God's powers, ever-changing endlessness. How may the finite be fully defined? Ever-changing endlessness. How may the infinite be fully defined? Good Lord. I'm in bad shape. I'm hungry and I'm tired. Verse 41, any being that is a worker of miracles, that is a possessor of true prosperity, that is endowed with great prowess, know all such to be manifested sparks of my radiance, unquote. That is so true. Quote, all individualized cosmic existences, man, angels, devas, intelligent forces, that wield the law of nature, that are possessed of the auspicious power of prosperity, which bestow all forms of success and well-being, that exhibit mighty prowess against dark or negative powers of delusion, understand these to be divine circumscribed expressions of my illimitable being, scintillating sparks of my infinite effulgence, unquote. It's well put. Verse 42, quote, but what need hast thou, O Arjuna, for the manifold details of this wisdom? Understand simply, I, unchanging and everlasting, sustain and permeate the entire cosmos with but one fragment of my being, unquote. The bewildering complexities of man and creation are finally resolvable in the divine simplicity. With human understanding, only vague glimpses of God are possible, but every query of a devotee's heart will be answered when in cosmic consciousness he attains realization of the Lord's transcendental omnipresence in and beyond creation. All the magnificence in the cosmos, evident and hidden, will be seen as but a glimmering resting on a glimmer resting on a infinitesimal thought of the eternally blissful consciousness of spirit. And from the Isha Upanishad, quote, O thou self-manifested cause and substance of creation, O thou indwelling self of all, thou source of illumination, guide me beyond thy rays of creation, transport me beyond thine objective form, that, by thy grace, I may behold thy glorious self, that absolute self, abiding in the transcendental effulgence. Verily, I am he, unquote. And that's the end of that chapter. So we got through two more chapters. Let's see here. Chapter 11. We are at chapter 11. 9:14. Yeah, that's too far, I think. That's going to probably take me another hour. And I'm already struggling. Yeah, that's it. Chapter 11. Okay, well, I guess I will end it there. I'm sorry if you guys are disappointed. It's kind of a bit of a short read today, but so be it. That's just definitely just trying to get this thing finished. But yeah, another interesting two more chapters: the Royal Knowledge, the Royal Mystery, Chapter 9, and Chapter 10, the Infinite Manifestations of the Unmanifested Spirit. Great information, and I definitely picked up a whole bunch more things that are going to definitely be added in the upcoming eagle and snake videos, because boy, has that that research has just taken a life of its own. But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I started doing those, or at least I thought of doing that series, is because after reading this book for the first, I should say, after listening to the book for the first time, and then I read it, really opened my eyes up to just a lot of different research into mythology. And I started realizing like there's a lot more to this that I think secular scholars are missing, because they aren't really searching for that part of the spiritual esoteric side of things. And I think in many ways they don't want to search for it. At least most of them don't, because they don't believe in it. Most of them are just total atheists. So in essence, like, we have this kind of situation where here we have this guy Yogananda, who spent his entire life within this sphere of religion, understanding these things. And I can respect the fact that he and his gurus and gurus were made it a point to actually try to bridge a gap between not just Hinduism and Christianity, but I think across the world. And I think with a lot of what, after we're done with this, a lot of what I'll be bringing out may surprise some of you guys. Maybe not, who knows? But either way, I really appreciate you guys joining me today, whether it was live and otherwise, anytime in time and space, because you know how the internet is. I want all of you to enjoy the rest of your day, your evening. Don't be discouraged by your own battle of Kurukshetra, which is the story of this entire Bhagavad Gita here. We are all fighting the same kind of things. So let us all be a little bit kind to each other and realize that, if we're all in the same battle, then we're all allies, really, in the same, bigger struggle for life in this world, in this universe. So, look to your friends and your neighbors and your family, and feel and see the struggle in their eyes, and the way that they are, and understand that it's just as much your struggle as it is anything else, and love them more for it, because we all have this. We're all in this together. We're all having to deal with these same issues. So let's not make it harder on ourselves, and have some compassion for others, because I think that's going to be the only thing that will actually change people's minds. And also, the more you change yourself in that way, the more people really notice. And that's when they'll start to ask questions. And that's when they'll start to realize, they're like, yo, something is different about you. They can't put their finger on it, but they know you have changed. And once they start to see that, that's when people start to be piqued, or the interest is piqued, basically. And that's the time where you can maybe give them a little nugget of information to test, to see if they're ready for that kind of information. So, but otherwise, keep it to yourself. Work on you. Always work on you, because that's the number one. And the more you work on you, the more you break through. Absolutely, the more you're going to be able to help others in life and of itself. And if you try to help something and it blows up in your face, well, it blew up in your face. Continue on, because there's countless people out there that need help. And even though some people may fall by the wayside, it doesn't mean they'll be gone forever. So where you may have to cut a cord with people, it doesn't mean that they can't come back. Because, again, there's always a way to be redeemed. And I think that's one of the best messages of this book, and many other books that I'll be bringing you guys in the future. So much love. Have a wonderful night, evening, day, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you guys on the flip side.